My roommate's a grumpy werewolf. I'm a cursed witch. And it's complicated. So, I accidentally signed a lease with a werewolf. Yeah. You heard that right. A grumpy, sarcastic werewolf who's allergic to silverware, steals my leftovers, and thinks doing the dishes is some ancient curse. And as if that's not enough, I'm a witch cursed to turn into a cat every full moon. Fun, right? What started as a desperate hunt for cheap rent turned into magical prank wars, enchanted sticky notes, a tiny body swap incident, and, oh yeah, a surprising amount of romantic tension I definitely did not sign up for. Stick around to find out how living with a werewolf went from my worst decision ever to, well, let's just say things got complicated. Please like and subscribe. Hit play. You're gonna want to hear this one. Chapter 1. How to accidentally room with a werewolf. If there's one thing I've learned from living in the magical equivalent of a college dorm, it's that spells and caffeine don't mix. Or maybe it's that I shouldn't attempt potion making at 3 a.m. while stress crying over a midterm I haven't studied for. Either way, the moral of the story is, don't be like me. Because one poorly measured dash of Phoenix-esh later, my dorm room exploded in a glorious burst of purple smoke, taking my color-coded planner collection and regrettably half the building's east wing with it, which is how I ended up here, broke, homeless, and staring at a Craigslist ad that screamed bad idea louder than my last attempt at potion brewing. Room for rent. Affordable. Semi-furnished. Must be okay with loud noises, occasional howling, and zero questions. That should have been my first clue. My second clue? The rent was suspiciously cheap. Like, haunted by, at least 3 ghosts cheap. But desperate people make questionable decisions, and I was very desperate, so I signed the lease without reading the fine print, which in retrospect, explicitly said, no refunds if your roommate is a cryptid. Oops. When I showed up to the apartment at 4 p.m. sharp, because punctuality is a core personality trait, I was expecting, well, not this. The door creaked ominously as I pushed it open, revealing a dim hallway that smelled vaguely like wet dog and regret. The place was technically semi-furnished, if you count a stained couch that looked like it had witnessed at least one unsolved mystery and a coffee table held together by what I could only assume was spite. And then there was him, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, wearing a scowl like it was custom-made for his face, messy dark hair, sharp jawline, and a vibe that screamed I hate small talk louder than an introvert at a party. This is a mistake, I blurted before my brain caught up with my mouth. He arched one eyebrow. Agreed. Great, we were off to a fantastic start. I'm Ren, I added, trying to salvage the moment. Ren Everhart, witch extraordinaire, master of disaster, and currently regretting all my life choices. Dorian, he replied, offering no further details. No last name, no handshake, just Dorian, like he was contractually obligated to give me the bare minimum. There was an awkward pause where we both pretended not to judge each other. He was sizing me up like I was an inconvenient delivery he didn't remember ordering, and I was mentally questioning if it was too late to live in my car. Finally, he jerked his chin toward the hallway. Your room's down there. Don't touch my stuff. Charming. The apartment had exactly 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and the kind of creaky floors that suggested a long history of bad decisions. As I passed the kitchen, I noticed something strange, a sticky note slapped onto the fridge. Welcome, Ren. Good luck surviving. I frowned. The handwriting was neat, almost too neat, like the kind of handwriting that belonged to someone with a lot of time on their hands. Did you write this? I called back to Dorian, holding up the note. He didn't even look up from where he was scrolling through his phone. Nope. A chill ran down my spine. I shoved the sticky note in a drawer, and decided to ignore it, because if I learned anything from horror stories, it's that nothing good ever comes from investigating ominous messages. Later that night, I sat cross-legged on my bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what kind of cosmic joke had led me here. My room smelled faintly of incense, and something burnt, probably my dignity. I could hear Dorian in the other room, muttering to himself. Occasionally, there'd be a thud, followed by a frustrated growl. At one point, the apartment door creaked again. No wind, no explanation. I poked my head out. Did you hear that? Dorian didn't even glance up. Don't worry about it. Oh, I worried. By the time I fell asleep, I had mentally drafted my resignation letter from life. Dear Universe, I'd like to formally request a refund. This roommate situation is clearly defective. Sincerely, Ren Everhart. Chapter 2. The Leftovers Incident. If there's one thing you should know about me, it's that I take leftovers very seriously. Like, might start a magical war over an unlabeled Tupperware serious. It's not just food, it's a symbol of hope, of survival, of not having to cook after a long day of pretending my life isn't a disaster. So imagine my horror when I opened the fridge the next morning to find my beloved enchiladas gone. Not shifted to the back of the fridge gone. Not covered in an invisibility charm gone. Just gone. I stood there, staring into the cold abyss, processing the betrayal. The empty shelf mocked me, and so did the suspiciously clean Tupperware sitting in the sink, looking all smug with its perfectly rinsed corners. Oh, it's on! I stormed into the living room, where Dorian was lounging on the couch like he paid rent with brooding alone. His hair was even messier than yesterday, which I didn't know was possible, and he had that same, I'm too cool to care expression plastered on his face. I crossed my arms. Dorian. He glanced up from whatever ancient, leather-bound book he was reading, because of course he'd be that guy. Ren, did you eat my enchiladas? There was the briefest flicker of something across his face, guilt, fear, nope, just mild annoyance. Maybe they evaporated, he said, deadpan. Did you ever think of that? I blinked. Evaporated? Enchiladas? Stranger things have happened. Oh, like you not being a colossal jerk? His only response was a lazy shrug, like he wasn't the prime suspect in the case of the missing enchiladas. Now I could have let it go, could have been the bigger person, but unfortunately for both of us, I'm petty. So I grabbed my enchanted sticky notes, yes, I own enchanted sticky notes, don't judge me, and slapped one on the fridge with a flick of my wand. Stop eating my food, or I'll hex your eyebrows off. Satisfied, I went about my day, fully expecting that to be the end of it. It was not the end of it, because the next morning, another sticky note appeared below mine. Same magical glow, different handwriting. I didn't eat your food, but if I did, it was dry anyway. I stared at the note, my eye twitching. Dry? Dry. Those enchiladas were a culinary masterpiece, a gift from the gods, eh? You know what? No, I wasn't going to lose this battle. Cue the revenge plan. I decided to cast a petty little truth spell. Nothing dangerous, just enough to make sure that if Dorian had eaten my food, he'd be unable to lie about it. Simple, harmless, foolproof. Except I wasn't, because instead of targeting Dorian, the spell backfired on me. It hit like a hiccup, a weird magical ripple that made my chest feel fizzy. I barely had time to process it before my mouth betrayed me. I once cried because my latte art was too pretty. I blurted out. Dorian froze, halfway through sipping his coffee. Slowly, he lowered the mug, raising one eyebrow. What? I slapped a hand over my mouth, wide-eyed. Oh no, but it was like the words had a mind of their own. And I named my houseplants after celebrities. Beyoncé's a fern. Dorian's lips twitched. Not a smile exactly, but dangerously close. And I accidentally hexed myself into thinking my ex was attractive for 6 whole months before I realized it was just the spell. Okay, that one physically hurt to admit. Dorian finally snorted, shaking his head. I'm not even mad. That's impressive. I groaned, collapsing onto the couch in defeat. Make it stop. Can't. But hey, at least I know more about you now. Like your tragic taste in men. I groaned louder. Eventually, the spell wore off, leaving me emotionally scarred and full of regret. But as I sat there, plotting Dorian's magical downfall, something strange happened. Another sticky note appeared on the fridge, but this time, neither of us wrote it. Maybe you should label your leftovers better. Just a thought. I frowned. Dorian swore it wasn't him. The apartment creaked softly, like it was laughing at me. I ignored it, because if I learned anything from horror stories, it's that nothing good ever comes from investigating ominous messages. Again. Chapter 3, The Cat's Out of the Bag. Literally there are certain things you should never forget as a cursed witch. Like your wand, the expiration date on enchanted milk, trust me, don't find out the hard way. And, most importantly, the full moon schedule. Guess which one I forgot? It started off like any other disastrous day. Dorian was being his usual grumpy, brooding self, and I was busy pretending not to care while aggressively labeling my food with passive-aggressive sticky notes. We'd reached an unspoken truce after the great leftovers incident, though I still hadn't forgiven him for the dry enchiladas comment. Some wounds never heal. By the time evening rolled around, I was nestled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, sipping my third cup of anxiety tea, blissfully unaware that I was about to turn into a cat. Literally. Now, for context, The cat curse isn't just some cute little quirk, it's the result of a very complicated magical mishap during a minor disagreement with my ex, which, in hindsight, involved way too many love potions and not enough common sense. Long story short, every full moon, I involuntarily transform into a very pissed off black cat, with an attitude problem and zero self-control. Normally, I lock myself in what I affectionately call my anti-cat escape room, basically a magically reinforced closet with no sharp objects, breakable items, or potential for chaos. But guess what? I forgot. The transformation hit like a magical freight train. 1 second, I was cozy in my blanket burrito. The next, poof, fur, whiskers, tail, the whole feline nightmare. Panic set in immediately. Okay, Ren, stay calm. You've dealt with worse. Just hide under the couch until morning. But then I saw it. Dorian's favorite hoodie. Casually draped over the back of a chair like it wasn't the comfiest, coziest thing in the entire apartment. Like it wasn't practically begging to be attacked. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the curse. Maybe it was residual petty rage. But before I could stop myself, I launched at it with the ferocity of a caffeinated raccoon. Claws out, teeth bared, full chaos mode engaged. I was mid-shred, fur fluffed, tail puffed like a Halloween decoration, when Dorian stumbled into the room, rubbing his eyes, clearly half asleep. He froze in the doorway, blinking at the sight of his favorite hoodie under siege by one very angry black cat. There was a long, awkward pause. Then, in the most deadpan voice imaginable, he muttered, "Cool, I always wanted a pet. Do you want snacks, or do you just eat rage?" If I could have spoken, I would have cursed him out. Instead, I hissed dramatically, and knocked a mug off the coffee table for emphasis. The rest of the night was a blur of chaotic cat antics. I tried to escape. Dorian tried to contain me. There were chase scenes. At one point, I knocked over an entire shelf of magical knickknacks and Dorian muttered something about reconsidering life choices. Eventually, exhaustion won. I curled up in a ball of spite and fur, glaring at him until I passed out. The next morning, I woke up human again. On the floor, in a pile of shredded fabric and regret, Dorian was sitting on the couch, sipping his coffee like this was perfectly normal. I groaned, covering my face. "You knew, didn't you?" He didn't even pretend to play dumb. "Yeah. Since when?" "Since day one." He shrugged, annoyingly casual. "I can smell magic. Figured you'd tell me eventually. But, you're dramatic." I sat up, glaring at him through the mess. "You thought I was dramatic? You just watched me maul your hoodie like it was a personal vendetta, and didn't think to say anything." Another shrug. I assumed it was therapeutic. And that's when I noticed something. My hands, well, technically my paws during the transformation, had faint, glowing marks, strange runes etched into my skin, pulsing softly like embers. Dorian was staring at them, his usual indifference slipping for just a second. "What are you looking at?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He blinked, masking whatever thought had crossed his mind. "Nothing. Just weird curse stuff, I guess." But his eyes lingered a little too long. And that's when I realized, Dorian Blackwood, or whatever his real name was, knew way more than he was letting on. The hoodie was shredded, the mystery deepened, and I was going to get answers. Eventually. Maybe after another cup of anxiety tea. Chapter 4. The Body Swap of Doom. If you've never accidentally body swapped with your grumpy, werewolf roommate during finals week, allow me to paint you a vivid, horrifying picture. It starts with petty revenge. It escalates with questionable spellwork. And it ends with me staring at Dorian's abs in the mirror, screaming internally. But let's rewind. It all began with the Great Laundry Incident. See, after the cat curse fiasco-arcing title, I decided it was time to reassert dominance in the apartment. Dorian may have been smug, broody, and frustratingly attractive, but I was a witch with a flair for dramatic vengeance. The catalyst? He shrunk my favorite sweater. Not just any sweater, my enchanted, self-warming, comfort knit sweater. The one that felt like a hug from the universe. Now, it fit like a crop top designed for an ambitious toddler. When I confronted him, his defense was, maybe it evaporated. Again with the evaporation. So naturally, I did what any emotionally stable adult would do. I cast a petty spell on his laundry. A simple enchantment meant to fold his clothes automatically. A harmless, passive-aggressive flex. Except, minor hiccup, I may have misread one of the spell runes. Instead of a neat stack of folded clothes, Dorian's laundry morphed into aggressive little origami wolves that followed him around the apartment, critiquing his fashion choices in squeaky, enchanted voices. Wow, another black t-shirt. Bold. Is this flannel vintage, or just sad? Do you even know how colors work? To my credit, it was hilarious. Dorian, however, did not share my enthusiasm. His retaliation was swift and petty. He hexed my alarm clock. Now, instead of a polite beep, it screamed overly enthusiastic compliments at 3 a.m. Rise and shine, you magical badass. You're a beacon of excellence. Face the day. Your hair looks amazing even when it doesn't. After 3 sleepless nights, I was one compliment away from committing a felony. So, fueled by caffeine, spite, and questionable judgment, I decided to end the war with a final, glorious prank. A spell designed to temporarily switch his dominant hand, just to annoy him. Simple. Easy. No potential for disaster. Cue ominous foreshadowing music. The spell backfired spectacularly. Instead of switching his dominant hand, it switched. Wait for it. Our entire bodies. 1 second, I was mid-chant, triumphant. The next, I was staring at my own body from across the room. Except it wasn't me in there. It was Dorian. And I was him. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Abs. Why did he have ABS? We both screamed. Simultaneously. In each other's voices. What did you do? Dorian me shouted, his voice an octave higher than usual. Me. You started it. I yelled back in his deep, gravelly tone. It was disorienting, like arguing with myself in surround sound. After the initial panic, and about 20 minutes of mutual yelling, we realized 2 things. 1, the spell was unstable and time-sensitive. 2, it was finals week, which wouldn't have been a problem if Dorian didn't have a werewolf council meeting. A very serious event where ancient, powerful werewolves gathered to discuss important werewolf business. And guess who had to go in his place? Me. In his annoyingly muscular body. The council meeting was a nightmare. Picture this, me, pretending to be Dorian, trying to act cool and mysterious while ancient werewolves stared me down like they could smell the imposter vibes. Which, considering they were literal werewolves, they probably could. I nodded solemnly, grunted occasionally, tried to radiate brooding alpha energy. But then they started discussing something that made me forget to act. The missing heir of the Black Fang bloodline. Powerful. Cursed. Dangerous. The name didn't mean much to me. Until I noticed Dorian's reaction. Well, technically my reaction, since he was in my body. But you get the idea. His eyes in my face, still weird, flickered with something sharp. Fear? Anger? Maybe both. And that's when I realized, Dorian had secrets. Big ones. Back at the apartment, we finally reversed the spell, after much trial, error, and one minor explosion, that turned the toaster into an aggressively sentient bread dispenser. As I collapsed onto the couch, in my body again, thank the stars, I glared at him. You're hiding something, I said. Dorian shrugged. As if ancient werewolf conspiracies were no big deal. Aren't we all? And then he walked away, leaving me alone with one burning question. Who the hell is Dorian Blackwood? Chapter 5. The Laundry Spell War. There are a few universal truths in life. 1. Gravity exists. 2. Coffee is the elixir of the gods. 3. Petty revenge will always escalate beyond your control, especially when magic is involved. This is the story of how a laundry spell spiraled into an interdimensional crisis. Yes, laundry. It started the morning after the great body swap disaster TM. I woke up determined to reclaim my dignity, my sanity, and maybe even a shred of control over my chaotic existence. Dorian, however, had other plans. He sauntered into the kitchen, my enchanted coffee mug in hand, the one that refills itself when I'm too lazy to get up. It's got a picture of a grumpy cat that says, "Hex first, questions later." Fitting, really. "Morning, sunshine," he said, smirking like he hadn't just spent a day wearing my face, and definitely not respecting my personal boundaries. I glared. You know that mug is bound to me, right? It's cursed for anyone else. He took a sip, unbothered. Tastes fine to me. Of course it did. Because life isn't fair. Fueled by caffeine, rage, and poor decision-making, I decided it was time for round 2 of Operation Petty Vengeance. The plan? Enchant his laundry again. Simple. Harmless. Cathartic. I cast a spell meant to make his clothes fold themselves. Easy, right? Except, and this is becoming a theme in my life, something went wrong. Instead of neatly folded t-shirts, Dorian's laundry transformed into sentient origami wolves. Again. But this time, they'd leveled up. They weren't just following him around and making snarky comments. Oh no. They developed personalities. They critiqued his life choices. They organized his books in alphabetical order, and then judged him for his lack of literary diversity. One particularly sassy towel wolf even sat on his shoulder, like a judgmental parrot, whispering things like, "Black t-shirt number 17? Groundbreaking?" It was glorious. Dorian was not amused. Naturally, he retaliated. He hexed my alarm clock again, but this time it didn't just scream compliments. It belted out motivational speeches in the voice of an overly enthusiastic life coach. "Wake up, champ. Today's the day you conquer the world. Remember, failure is just success in progress. You have a beautiful soul and questionable taste in men." Rude, but accurate. Things escalated quickly after that. I enchanted his shampoo to smell like wet dog. He hexed my favorite pens to write only in Comic Sans. I cursed his cereal to taste like betrayal, which apparently is weirdly minty. And then it happened. The spell that broke the universe. I was trying to outdo myself, crafting an enchantment to make his laundry aggressively fold itself whenever he got too close. I added a bit of extra magical flair because, let's be honest, subtlety isn't my thing. But instead of a neat folding charm, I accidentally opened a pocket dimension. In the dryer. 1 minute. I'm standing there, smug and triumphant. The next, the dryer sucked in half of Dorian's wardrobe, and his favorite hoodie. Cue immediate panic. Dorian burst into the laundry room, his expression a mix of rage and disbelief. "You opened a portal." "In the dryer." I nodded, trying to look confident. "Technically, it's a pocket dimension." "In the dryer, Ren?" "Okay, but hear me out." Before I could finish, the portal hiccuped, and a sock with teeth tried to escape. Dorian didn't even flinch. "I'm going in." Against all logic and basic survival instincts, we both climbed into the dryer. Inside was not what I expected. Imagine an endless, swirling void filled with floating laundry, rogue socks with sharp teeth, and angry towel wolves rebelling against their folded fate. Somewhere in the chaos was Dorian's hoodie. We fought our way through, armed with nothing but a broken wand, a bottle of enchanted fabric softener, and our collective bad decisions. At one point, I had to negotiate with a sentient dryer lint monster who demanded a sacrifice of great emotional value. I gave it my last untouched sticky note pad. It was a dark day. Eventually, we retrieved the hoodie and escaped the pocket dimension, tumbling back into the apartment, disheveled, covered in lint, and questionably traumatized. Dorian clutched his hoodie like it was a sacred relic. I collapsed on the floor, laughing hysterically. "Admit it, that was kind of fun." He stared at me for a long moment. Then, with the faintest hint of a smirk, he said, "You're insufferable," which, coming from him, is basically a compliment. Later that night, as I was picking lint out of my hair, I noticed something strange. A coin. Old, worn, covered in runes, the same ones that appear on my skin when I'm cursed. I held it up, frowning. "Hey Dorian, does this look familiar to you?" He glanced at it, his expression shifting ever so slightly. "No," he lied. "Badly. Very badly." And just like that, the petty prank war was over, because something bigger was brewing, and Dorian Blackwood was hiding more than just laundry secrets. Chapter 6. The Almost Kiss, and a Surprise Betrayal. You'd think that after surviving a rogue pocket dimension filled with carnivorous socks, I'd have earned a break. Maybe a nice cup of tea, a nap, a day without life-threatening laundry-related incidents. But no. Instead, I got hit with feelings. It started innocently enough, if you consider magical interdimensional anomalies innocent. After the whole dryer fiasco, Dorian and I were stuck in this weird truce. The petty pranks had paused, replaced by an awkward, lingering tension neither of us wanted to acknowledge. I kept telling myself it was residual adrenaline, a trauma bond, something temporary. Spoiler, it wasn't. The coin I'd found in the pocket dimension became an obsession. The runes on it matched the glowing marks that appeared on my skin whenever the cat curse kicked in. Coincidence? Doubtful. I spent hours hunched over grimoires, decoding ancient symbols, while Dorian pretended not to hover in the doorway like an overprotective guard dog. "You're going to set the book on fire if you glare at it any harder," he muttered one evening, leaning against the doorframe with that infuriatingly casual posture. I didn't even look up. Maybe if I do, the flames will reveal a secret message. Or it'll just be on fire. Our entire relationship could be summarized like that, me overthinking, him pretending not to care, both of us ignoring the obvious. The night it happened, the almost kiss incident TM, we were trying to close another rogue portal. Apparently, once you tear a hole in the fabric of reality, it becomes a recurring issue. This time, it wasn't in the dryer. It was in the hallway closet. Because of course it was. We stood shoulder to shoulder, arguing about the best way to contain the swirling, chaotic vortex that threatened to suck in everything from spare shoes to my dignity. I'm telling you, we need to stabilize the magical field first, I snapped, clutching my wand. Dorian rolled his eyes. Or, and hear me out, we punch it. You can't punch a portal, not with that attitude. In the end, it was teamwork, and a little punching, that saved the day. We managed to seal the portal, but not before being knocked to the floor in the aftermath of the magical backlash. Which is how I found myself lying beneath Dorian, our faces inches apart, his hand braced, beside my head, his eyes glowing faintly from residual magic, or maybe something else. My heart did that annoying thing where it forgot how to function properly. Neither of us moved. The tension was unbearable, thick like honey, sticky and impossible to ignore. His gaze dropped to my lips for half a second, just enough to set my brain on fire. Oh no, this was happening. We were going to kiss. And then, of course, the universe intervened. Bang! The apartment door flew open with dramatic flair, slamming against the wall. Enter Jasper. Yes, that Jasper. My ex, the one with the perfect jawline, smug grin, and the emotional maturity of a cursed toad. And apparently, now a bounty hunter for magical artifacts. Because why not? Wow, Jasper said, strolling into the apartment like he owned the place. Didn't realize I was interrupting a moment. I scrambled to my feet, face burning hotter than a poorly contained fire spell. Dorian stood too, his jaw clenched, eyes narrowing with a territorial glint that was definitely not jealousy. Probably. What are you doing here? I snapped. Jasper flashed his signature grin, the one that used to make my heart flutter, and now made me want to throw things. Business. Thought I'd drop by. You know, catch up. Translation. He wanted something. The tension shifted from romantic to existential dread real quick. Jasper wasn't just here for a casual chat, he was after something or someone, and judging by the way his gaze kept flickering between me and Dorian, it wasn't going to be good. Plot twist number 1. Jasper wasn't just a bounty hunter. He was hunting me. Apparently, during our messy breakup, I may have accidentally cursed him. Nothing major, just a minor time loop spell. You know, the kind that traps someone in a repetitive cycle of emotional stagnation. Oops. Now he needed my help to break the curse. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the amulet around his neck. It glowed faintly every time Dorian, and I argued. Plot twist number 2. The amulet wasn't just reacting to conflict. It was feeding off our magical tension, literally fueled by the chaotic, unresolved mess of feelings between us. Which meant, Jasper had been tracking me through my fights with Dorian. Romantic tension as a magical GPS. Fantastic? Later that night, after Jasper left with vague threats and even vaguer charm, I sat on the couch, staring at the coin from the pocket dimension. Dorian joined me in silence, the space between us charged with everything we weren't saying. Eventually, he spoke. You okay? I nodded. Lied. Totally fine. Because what was I supposed to say? Hey, I think I might be cursed, accidentally cursed my ex, and might also be falling for my grumpy werewolf roommate? Yeah. No. But deep down, I knew things were unraveling. Not just the curse. Me. Chapter 7. Plot twist within a plot twist. There are pivotal moments in life, those dramatic turning points, where everything clicks into place and you realize, oh no, I'm the main character in a story that's about to get significantly worse. This was one of those moments. It started innocently enough, with me doing what I do best, obsessively overanalyzing ancient magical symbols while pretending not to think about my feelings for Dorian. You know, self-care. I'd been staring at the cursed coin from the pocket dimension for hours, my desk buried under books, scrolls, and enchanted sticky notes with passive-aggressive reminders like, don't set anything on fire. Caffeine isn't a personality trait, but also, yes it is. Stop thinking about Dorian's stupid face. Helpful stuff. Dorian hovered in the background, pretending to read a book, but really just watching me, with that infuriatingly unreadable expression. Maybe you should take a break, he said, casually flipping a page. I didn't look up. Maybe you should mind your business, considering your business involves portals, curses, and occasionally setting things on fire. I think it's very much my business.
Touché.
Eventually, frustration got the better of me. I slammed my hands on the desk, accidentally triggering a magical reaction. The cursed coin shot into the air, spinning like a tiny, smug UFO before slamming into my forehead with the accuracy of a spiteful universe. Bonk. I blinked. Dorian tried, and failed, not to laugh. But then, something weird happened. The runes on the coin glowed, and so did the curse marks on my skin. Whoa. No. The symbols matched perfectly. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing. Dorian. Look. He was beside me in an instant, his hand hovering near mine, but not quite touching. His eyes flicked from the coin to my glowing curse marks, his expression darkening. That's not a coincidence, he muttered, because obviously, but here's where it gets worse. Plot twist number 1. The curse wasn't random. It was designed, carefully, deliberately, to affect someone connected to Dorian. Which meant, I'm cursed because of you, I whispered, the realization hitting me like a freight train made of existential dread. Dorian stiffened. That doesn't make sense. Oh, doesn't it? I snapped, gesturing wildly. The curse reacts to you. The symbols match. And, oh yeah, you're a magnet for magical disasters. He didn't argue, which was even more infuriating. We dove into research mode, flipping through grimoires, ancient scrolls, and one suspiciously sassy talking book that kept saying, "Y'all are doomed. Just kiss already." Eventually, we found the answer buried in an old prophecy. Because of course there's a prophecy. There's always a prophecy. It detailed a curse designed to target the soulmate of a powerful magical bloodline. Guess whose bloodline was mentioned? Yep. Dorian's. Plot twist number 2. I wasn't cursed because I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I was cursed because of Dorian. Because according to ancient magic and some very dramatic prophecies, I was his soulmate. I stared at the book, then at Dorian, then back at the book, waiting for reality to correct itself. It didn't. So, I said, voice shaky, are you telling me I'm cursed because I'm destined to fall for you? Dorian's expression didn't change, but his ears turned pink. That explains the weird tension. The weird tension, I screeched. This is not a cute moment, Dorian. He blinked slowly. I mean, it kind of is. I paced the room like a caffeinated squirrel, my thoughts spiraling. This is fine, I lied. Totally fine. Just a casual soulmate curse. No big deal. Dorian watched me, his usual snark replaced by something softer, something that made my heart do stupid, inconvenient things. It doesn't have to mean anything, he said quietly. It's just magic. But we both knew that wasn't true. And because the universe loves to kick me when I'm down, that's when I discovered the real betrayal. Plot twist number 3. Dorian had been secretly meeting with Jasper. Yes, that Jasper. My ex, the one stuck in a magical time loop, because of me. I found out purely by accident, overheard them arguing in the alley behind our apartment. Jasper's voice was sharp, laced with frustration. You're supposed to keep her away from this, Dorian. Dorian growled low in his throat, the sound sending a shiver down my spine. I'm protecting her. From me? Jasper scoffed. Or from the truth? I stormed outside, fueled by righteous fury and poor impulse control. What truth? I demanded. They both froze. Jasper smirked. Dorian swore under his breath. Chapter 8. The betrayal you didn't see coming. There's a specific kind of heartbreak that feels worse than any curse, worse than magical mishaps, pocket dimensions, or even finding out your enchanted coffee mug has been subtly judging you for months. It's the kind that comes from someone you trusted. After overhearing Dorian and Jasper's little secret meeting, I did what any emotionally stable, mature adult would do. I stormed back into the apartment, slammed the door with unnecessary force, and set 3 pillows on fire by accident. Cass. Dorian burst in moments later, skidding to a stop as he took in the small inferno. It's fine, I shouted, aggressively casting a water spell that only made the pillows steam angrily. Dorian sighed, ran a hand through his already messy hair, and muttered, yeah, clearly. We didn't talk about it that night. Instead, we engaged in the most passive-aggressive silent treatment ever, punctuated only by enchanted sticky notes. I'm not mad. This is a lie. Cool. Same. Also a lie. Stop breathing so loudly. It's called existing, Cass. Healthy communication? Never heard of her. But the thing about unresolved tension, especially the magical kind, is that it doesn't just sit quietly, it festers. And eventually, it explodes. A few days later, the apartment itself betrayed me. Literally, one of the sentient sticky notes floated down from the ceiling while I was making coffee. It drifted lazily onto the counter, as if the universe wanted to rub salt in my emotional wounds. Written in suspiciously neat handwriting, ask him why he was really meeting Jasper. I stared at the note, then at the ceiling. Rude, I muttered. But it worked, because an hour later, I cornered Dorian in the living room, hands on my hips, my heart racing with more than just caffeine. Why were you meeting with Jasper? He didn't even pretend to misunderstand, just sighed, setting down the book he wasn't really reading. I was trying to protect you. From what? From yourself. The words hit harder than I expected. From myself? What did that even mean? Plot twist number 1. Apparently my curse wasn't just some harmless magical inconvenience. It was volatile, dangerous. Dorian had seen it firsthand. During one of my full moon transformations, when I'd accidentally unleashed a burst of wild magic strong enough to crack the apartment walls. I didn't remember it. He did. You think I'm a threat? I whispered, the words tasting bitter. His expression softened. No, I think you're powerful, and that terrifies me. We stared at each other, the air thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. And then, because life wasn't chaotic enough, Jasper burst through the door. Again. Seriously, does this guy even knock? But this time, he wasn't smug. He was panicked. There's a problem, he gasped, clutching a glowing amulet. A big one. Plot twist number 2. The curse wasn't just affecting me. It was spreading. Apparently my unstable magic had created ripples, small fractures in the fabric of reality. And something, or someone, was using those fractures to break through. Dorian and I exchanged a look. All our petty arguments, magical mishaps, and emotional avoidance, none of it mattered anymore. Because the real threat was here, and it wasn't just after me, it was after him. Chapter 9, The Grand Magical Showdown. There's a specific moment right before your life descends into complete chaos. A kind of eerie calm, where everything feels too quiet, like the universe is taking a deep breath before it sucker punches you in the face. This was that moment. After Jasper's dramatic entrance, seriously, does he even own a doorbell? We had about 5 minutes of what do you mean the curse is spreading, and could you be more vague? Before things officially went to hell. Literally. Because that's when the portal opened. It started as a hairline crack in the living room wall, like a spider web fracture on glass, but instead of splintering drywall, it splintered reality. The crack pulsed with an ominous purple glow. Whispering voices seeped through, like distant echoes of bad decisions. I blinked. That's new. Dorian didn't respond. He was too busy shifting into battle mode. Eyes glowing faintly, magic coiling around his fingertips like liquid shadows. Jasper pulled out his dagger, which was entirely unnecessary, but very on brand. And me? I grabbed the nearest weapon available, an aggressively enchanted frying pan. Look, magic is great, but nothing beats the versatility of cast iron. The portal blew wide open. Out stepped Marek. Let me paint the picture, tall, cloaked in dramatic, unnecessarily flowy robes, cheekbones sharp enough to commit tax fraud, eyes glowing with the kind of malevolence that screams. I monologue before every fight. Dorian stiffened beside me. His magic flared dangerously. Uncle. Plot twist number 1. Yes, Marek was Dorian's estranged uncle, the same uncle responsible for cursing me. Because why have simple villainy when you can add family drama? Marek's smile was all sharp teeth and smug superiority. Ah, Dorian, still playing house with the cursed girl? I gripped my frying pan tighter. Cursed girl has a name. Thanks. Dorian didn't respond. His jaw clenched, shadows swirling around his hands. You're not going to win, Marek said casually, inspecting his nails like he hadn't just waltzed in through an interdimensional crack. Oh, I'm definitely going to win, I snapped. Because you made the classic villain mistake. Marek raised an eyebrow. Which is? I smiled sweetly, underestimating the power of rage, caffeine, and poor life choices. The battle began. It was a blur of chaos. Dorian unleashed shadow magic like a storm given human form, every movement sharp and precise. Jasper fought with reckless agility, flipping around like he thought he was in an action movie. And me? I turned into a giant, rage-powered magical panther. Yep. Apparently the curse had levels. I didn't have time to process it. 1 minute I was a moderately angry witch wielding a frying pan. The next I was a glowing, ethereal panther made of pure magic and spite. I tackled Marek with the force of every bad day I'd ever had. But Marek wasn't just some discount villain with daddy issues. He was powerful. He threw spells like daggers, shattering furniture and cracking the walls. The apartment, sentient, petty, and done with everyone's nonsense, fought back. Doors slammed shut on command. Furniture launched itself at Marek. Sticky notes appeared mid-battle. Kick his ass, Cass. Dorian, aim better. Jasper, stop flipping. It's not helping. At one point, Jasper did a backflip, only to immediately get zapped. I'd feel bad but, I don't. The battle raged until Dorian, and I stood side by side, bruised, bloodied, and furious. Mirek sneered. You can't stop me. Dorian's magic pulsed. My curse flared. And together, our powers finally in sync, we blasted him with everything we had. Light and shadow collided. The room exploded with magic. And Mirek was gone. The apartment was half destroyed. Smoke curled from the walls. A chair was still on fire in the corner. Dorian and I stood there, panting, covered in soot and magical residue. Then, without thinking, without planning, we kissed. Right in the middle of the wreckage. Because of course we did. Plot twist number 2. Breaking the curse didn't erase my feelings. It just removed the magical excuse. I pulled back, breathless. So, Dorian whispered, still think this was all just the curse? I swallowed hard. No, I admitted. I think I just genuinely like you. Unfortunately. He grinned. And then the apartment caught fire. Again. Chapter 10. The Kiss. Finally, for real this time. They say life flashes before your eyes right before you die. For me, it was more like a montage of every bad decision I'd ever made, set to the dramatic soundtrack of our apartment being on fire. Again. To recap, we'd just defeated Mirek, the evil uncle with a flair for dramatics. I'd turned into a giant magical panther fueled by rage and unresolved feelings. Dorian and I finally kissed amidst the smoldering ruins of our living room. And then the couch spontaneously combusted because the universe has zero chill. We stared at the flames licking up the walls, both of us breathing hard, not from the kiss. Okay, maybe partly from the kiss, but mostly from the adrenaline crash. Jasper stood off to the side, holding a fire extinguisher like it was a decorative accessory. Aren't you going to use that? I snapped. He shrugged. It feels like interrupting a moment. The fire situation. It wasn't just a normal fire. Oh no, this was magical residue fire. The kind that didn't respond to regular water spells or fire extinguishers. Of course, because why have a simple problem when we could have a chaotically enchanted inferno that smelled faintly of burnt marshmallows and regret? Dorian sighed, running a hand through his messy, soot-streaked hair. Well, he muttered, this feels like a metaphor for our relationship. I snorted. Burning down around us? Yeah. Accurate. Jasper coughed pointedly. I'm still here by the way. No one cares, Jasper. Eventually, with a combination of spells, creative cursing, the non-magical kind, and a lot of panicked flailing, we managed to put the fire out. The apartment was, let's call it aesthetic, post-apocalyptic chic. Half the furniture was charred, the wallpaper peeled like it was trying to escape, and a sticky note floated down from the ceiling that read, thanks for the excitement. Rent's going up. Fast forward a few weeks. Dorian and I are officially dating. Jasper still refuses to knock. The apartment is recovering from its existential crisis, with occasional grumbling via passive-aggressive sticky notes. On the fridge, I love you, but if you eat my leftovers again, I'll hex your eyebrows off. Next to it, joke's on you. I look good without eyebrows. And just to keep us humble, another note appears, seemingly from nowhere. Congrats on surviving. Also, your rent is going up. Love, the apartment. Because in the end, life isn't about defeating evil uncles or breaking ancient curses. It's about finding someone who'll fight magical fires with you, literally and metaphorically, and maybe steal your leftovers when you're not looking. The end. If you accidentally signed a lease with a supernatural roommate, would you rather live with a grumpy werewolf, a sarcastic vampire, or a mischievous ghost, and why?